Let's not get bogged down with who didn't upload for 3 years. I mean, it's not like there's been 14 episodes of Project Binky in that time. I'm really excited to share with all of you guys. There are some massive changes that have been happening, stuff that I've only ever been dreaming about. But there is 4 years of content sitting around that I've got to edit into videos first, and that's going to take some time. Let's start off this catch-up process by biting off a massive chunk of bodywork and getting the thing back on the frame.
Episode 4 ended before we could finish the driver's side wheel well and quarter panel. We already did this on the passenger side, and I really wanted to subject you to the same amount of grief and pain that we had to go through. But I am in a generous mood right now, so let's skip through it. There we go. With the outer wheel well installed, gaps filled, and seam seal applied, we can stitch in the repair panels for the main quarter. As stated in a previous episode, we decided to use patch panels for reasons of cost. However, after completing the process, we would highly suggest getting the entire replacement units for your project. If ours ever become problematic in the future, they will be cut off and likely replaced with some composite versions. The removed scrap will be hung on the wall as a badge of shame. As the whole rear end of the car was removed in the last episode, the bumper mounts needed to be reinstated. Fitment turned into its own little task, however, as we noticed that the factory-installed taillight surround was a bit off. The height here was about a 1/4 inch different from side to side. It's little things like this that can take ages to find, as you automatically assume that it's your error and not the factory's. We decided not to try to correct this discrepancy, as it was a non-rusty panel that had survived almost 50 years, and it's these little details that give the car something that I like to call character. Instead, we set the bumper position to hide the error as much as possible by keeping the gaps here consistent. With the bumper mounting brackets welded in place and a coat of paint applied, we could turn our attention to finishing off these funny little corners.
So on the rear quarter panel of the car, we've already put on this new piece here. We've already put on the new lip. And now that we've finished off getting this area cleaned up, we can now take the final piece of the puzzle. It doesn't exactly fit very well, as you can sort of get the idea of there. The actual, this inner wheel well here could be too far forward on the car, which is causing this to sit too far forward, which is causing this to sit too far forward. But this piece here is in line with the original wheel well, which we did not take out. This is factory. So as far as we know, it is in the right position, which means that none of this really is making much sense to us. So maybe this piece here itself is not stamped properly. We don't really know, but it's what we got to work with. So what we're going to end up doing is making a cut somewhere in here and actually slicing it and pulling this part back to fit up through here, pulling this bit forward to fit through here, and then we'll just patch in that little gap.
After figuring out how much we had to extend it, we welded a new strip of steel in place and mounted it to the car for good. The fitment is far better now, and although we still have a gut feeling that we must have screwed up something, it is what it is, and in the end, we're fairly pleased with the results. All the replacement metal on this side of the car is now installed, and it's just a matter of welding it all up and grinding it smooth. The other side had a couple of differences that required more alterations to the patch to get it fitting the way we wanted.
We've got it welded a little bit there, we've got it tacked in a few places along here. Now we've come to the back. We've kind of been trying to pull the metal this way because we've ended up with a gigantic hole down here, about a 1/4 inch of a gap where the metals aren't meeting this way. And what I've seen before is people with these special little tools that they weld on a bracket and then put a puller on, and then they yank something. So we've kind of made a rudimentary version with just a little sort of hook and a little piece of metal that I put some bends in and welded on. And what we've kind of got is this sort of thing.
That whole process probably looks a bit sketchy on video, and these are my least favorite areas of the restoration overall. But after they were ground back and primed, you have to agree that they're not terrible. The lap weld was necessary for us to fit them up, and the result is a small transition that should cover up with minimal filler. At least there's no rust in there anymore, and we made sure to treat the backside of the panels with rust converter to prevent the seams from corroding internally. Final welding in the passenger wheel well completes the job, and it's looking like a car again. Don't forget what we started with. We really don't want this little car rusting out ever again, so one of our solutions was to completely go through and seam weld it. This involved beating things with hammers until they fit, cutting off the excess material, welding it, obviously, and then the familiar task of grinding them all to look nice and pretty. Don't worry about that surface rust. A few weeks of summer weather had gone by, and we'll tidy it up soon. Oh, there, told you so. Now's the time to make that gaping hole in the driver's side wheel well even bigger. More cleanup and preparation before this side too gets welded up for good. I sincerely hope we'll never have to replace or remove those panels in the future. I mean, just imagine, that would be awful. After fully welding the sill's pinch seam, yes, it takes a while. It too is cleaned back, primed, and that really does finish off everything under here. Except for that blooming great big hole in the wheel well. We really should get on with that.
This is a two-person operation. Now, he hits there, I move this. You could buy a machine, but why would you do that?
You saw that it was free.
Exactly.
With the shape coming along nicely, we used a dolly to help smooth out the highs and lows. We asked for Susie or Julie too, but Dolly was the only one up to the challenge. Yes, an English wheel would be really nice right about now, but have you seen the size of our garage? A quick tidy up with a flap disc and the resulting part fits the bill very nicely. We decided to lap weld it in, as the butt weld on the other side proved to be more hassle than it was really worth.
Will that work?
With that, we really are done at the bottom of the car. What a load of work. Let's change the focus to the pinch seam at the top of the windscreen, which is a notorious area for rusting out on these cars. Of course, before we can assess it, let's first remove about half an inch or so of filler to find the pinch seam. Although I've seen worse, this is still going to need a lot of work, as the metal is pitted the entire way along. I find it a bit odd that the worst point in this seam is the middle. Maybe the car spent a portion of its past life upside down in Australia?
Oh man, that is disgusting. Oh.
So what?
The
You've
whole
got this
thing.
piece here.
has just dropped off as we've peeled off the top. So the only thing that's holding it on is a little bit down the bottom here, and the same thing on the other side. The bottom. Although there is a finisher on the ones, the rear quarter. Yeah.
After coming up with a plan of attack, the angle grinder was once again deployed to remove the affected area.
Look at the junk inside.
Before anyone gets worried, we did measure an even gap all the way from one side to another to ensure that we will not affect the shape of the roof when it comes time to fill this hole back in. So we've cut out this little section here. Some people even have to cut back farther because of the amount of rust. We were fairly lucky in a sense that it was only a little bit, and we were never totally sure what we were going to be doing here in the long run anyways. So we just said, you know what, just cut it all out, remove all the rust. Now we have pretty good metal here. And what we're going to do is just bridge over this gap, and we'll have just shaved to the drip rail. These side corners here were a bit more involved to remove, as we had to figure out how to blend them into the rest of the bodywork and not make it look out of place with the front seam now missing. With them out of the way, you can see we've actually got a pretty good chance of smoothing it off completely. The result will not only simplify and tidy up the design of the car, but also ensure it will never rust out here again. Some of the worst rust seen here will be cut out later and replaced, but for the most part, we'll just use some rust converter and treat the affected area before sealing it up with some primer. I can barely believe I'm saying this, but finally, the body is at a point where we can remove it from the rotisserie and reinstall it on the frame, as the next steps will be a lot easier with it at a ground level. Ha! Wow, it looks, lifted. What the heck gives? Ah, our new shock relocation kit is fouling on the body shell. Classic. The expensive aftermarket parts intended for a Rotoflex style GT6 don't fit a Rotoflex style GT6. I'm surprised to be surprised, actually. Stupid! So we've got to take those out, just so the body will sit down properly, and then eventually we'll just come back and fix it with a better solution. I think that's where we'll leave this video. There is a lot more to come though, so stay tuned, and thanks for watching. If you like what we're doing on this channel, please consider supporting us through Patreon and sharing this video. We'll see you next time.
Does it pass? What?
No, it fails. It fails miserably. All right.
That's a boot test.
Yes.